Welcome to another episode of the Risk Takers Podcast presented by HYM Enterprises. I'm your host, Harold Matos. This is a show where we feature esteemed business leaders as they provide us insights into their business and personal journey. Please like, share, and subscribe for a weekly dose of your motivation and inspiration. Please welcome the radiant and talented Shari Armstrong. Shari is a familiar face to many of you as a dedicated news anchor for Fox 4. With her warm presence and commitment to delivering the news with accuracy and integrity, Shari has become a trusted source of information for viewers across Southwest Florida. But Shari is more than just a news anchor. She's a passionate advocate for her community. Tonight, Shari joins us to share her insights on the Risk Takers Podcast. Let's give her a warm welcome.
Wow, that was really nice. Thank you so much. That made me feel good. Thank you.
Yeah, how you feeling emotionally, spiritually, physically?
Yeah, I love that you start your show like that by checking in with people. I feel good, but it's the holiday season, so I would be lying to you if I didn't say I feel a little stressed. But I feel good. I feel grateful, busy, and grateful to be busy. You know what I'm saying? How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great, man.
Okay.
You know, this is a different lane for me, so I'm usually the one that's kind of been in front of the camera, you know, while we're in the classroom with students, so the camera's kind of always on me, and then we leak out those reels. So I'm getting actually to interview people, and the focus is not on me, the focus is on you guys now, and, you know, people get to see the good, the bad, and the ugly. So, so I feel great. Thank you for asking.
Love it, yeah.
But, all right, first and foremost, and I'm sure, like I said, right now you feel even better that you guys are out of hurricane season.
Oh my gosh.
So that's probably the most stressful time.
Yeah,
of the year?
100%. I mean, there are things, there's hurricane season, there's elections, right, every couple years that we run into as well. But hurricane season has become more and more stressful, I think, for our team because you know this from being here. It was like, you know, every so often we have a storm that we hunker down for, as they say. But the way we've been seeing them lately has been like, what exactly is happening here? And so you're managing the stress here in the studio. This last storm season, we were here, we were sleeping in the studio, right? Because you're on air 12 hours on, 12 hours off. But then of course, we're people, we have families. A lot of my coworkers have young children. So you're also managing that as well. So you're a resident here, you care about what's going on. You're worried about what you experienced after Ian. Are we gonna experience that again? And also you're working to keep people informed here in the studio. So yeah, am I happy hurricane season is over? Please believe.
Talking about, you know, being a resident of Southwest Florida, you're actually, you know, a native here in Southwest Florida. What is it about this area that has kept you here until this day?
Yeah, so I was born in Connecticut. I grew up here in Southwest Florida. This is my home. I went to Evangelical Christian School from 4th grade and graduated there. And I went to school at USF in Tampa. Then I traveled and lived in a couple other places. The thing that keeps me here is my family. I'm super connected to my family. My mom always jokes and says, you said that all the time, but I never see you. But I like knowing that she's down the street, you know? So my family being rooted here is probably the number one thing that keeps me here. And outside of it, like, you know, you travel places and you come back and you're like, I love this place. You know, growing up, I was like heavy trying to get out of here. It's too slow. It's all the old people. Now maybe I am one of the old people because I'm like, keep me here. I love Southwest Florida. I love being out like at the beach, you know, like I love being on the water. Like I love this place. But the thing that has kept me here the most is my family, for sure.
You know, we were talking about the mayor, Kevin Anderson.
Yes.
And so I didn't know that you were from Connecticut because he's from Connecticut. Is that where you guys clicked?
No, Kevin never told me he was from Connecticut. I did not know that. No. Just from having to do so many interviews with local leaders, you do end up developing some type of relationship with them and getting to know them. And I believe that it's important to connect with people outside of just like, you know, the interview, right? So I end up running into him in regards to local politics and stuff like that. But also I'm like, when I see him downtown, I'm like, Mr. Mayor, how you doing, you know? Or I always, whenever I see him at events, I always challenge him to dance at events and he gets super embarrassed and like red or like pink. But I just love taking care of people outside of their career title or name. So I do love him so much. I love our local leaders. You know, you don't necessarily have to agree with them, but I appreciate what they do for our community and their dedication. Somebody like Mayor Anderson has been a part of Southwest Florida for a very long time, served Fort Myers Police Department, I believe. And so I appreciate people's dedication to our area because I relate to it.
Did the passion of journalism start in high school for you or prior? And what was the driving force that got you into journalism?
That's a good question. I didn't have the guts to be an actress. That's the truth. Like, I didn't have the guts to be an actress. When I was in high school, I was heavy into musical theater. I loved being on stage so much, but I was like, I'm not gonna get no job doing this. So when I graduated, I decided I was gonna do broadcast journalism. Now, don't get me wrong. My mom and my grandfather sat me down every day at 6 o'clock to watch the local news. So I've always been a news person. Really, it's been ingrained in me to be that. But when it comes to like the passion of it, like I did when I was in high school, I wanted to do it, but the number one thing I wanted to do was theater. And because I doubted myself, that's why it's like, if you love something, do it. To this day, sometimes I wonder like, what would have happened if I had stayed with that? But the passion comes really from the love for storytelling and the love for helping people to understand why we run what we run on the news. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So like, I don't like talking about death, car accidents, even everyday things like inflation. I know how hard it is right now to pay for things. You know what I'm saying? I understand, I get it for so many people in our community, but I am passionate about helping people understand why those things matter. What is inflation? Some people, they know inflation, they know it's more expensive at the store, but they don't really understand the concepts. I want people to understand the concepts, and that's what I'm passionate about. Maybe during election season, you might have seen some of my stories or the videos that I put out. I want people to understand why voting at the local level is important. Don't just tell people to vote. Help people to connect the dots to understand why they should be out there participating. The passion is people.
Talking about acting, theater, all those things, who's your favorite actress?
That's a good question. My favorite, I don't like that question because I gotta like minimize it down to, right now it's the woman who played, I can't think of her last name, but the woman who played Elphaba in Wicked. Cynthia, I get a total red flag for not remembering her name. But like that woman, did you see Wicked?
No.
You're hurting my feelings. Wicked was incredible. And for a musical theater nerd like myself, I loved it. But she was just incredible, totally totally like embracing that character and becoming it. And I've seen different clips of her. She's my favorite actress right now. But if I'm being honest, probably my favorite male actor is Matthew McConaughey.
Matthew McConaughey?
Okay, don't judge. Okay. That feels like a little high-pitched judgment when I said that, okay? But I love me some Matthew McConaughey.
How do you ensure the accuracy and fairness of your reporting? Since, in movies, there's do-overs, there's take 3, take 15, but for you guys, it's live. So how do you ensure the accuracy and fairness of your reporting?
Our team spends a lot of time in sourcing, and I appreciate you asking that question because the reality of it is with TikTok and Instagram and all these platforms, there are a lot of things that present themselves as fact, as real. You were talking about hurricane season. One of the things that irked me was how many videos there were about the storms and where they were and when they were gonna hit and how catastrophic it was gonna be, and it was based on false or incorrect information. But unfortunately, if you're scrolling, it even happened to me, I was like, oh my gosh. And then I'm flipping through the person who posted it, and that person's a real estate agent. You know what I'm saying? Like they're actually not even a meteorologist, but their videos have thousands of views. So sourcing has become that much more important to what we do. And the way that even in regular conversation, people might hit me or text me and say, Shari, is this true? I'll be like, where'd you get that information from? So we are very big in sourcing information. We've done a couple stories recently that required a lot of digging, and our news leaders here will be like, we're not putting that on the air unless we do some more digging. We can hold off on that story. While other stations might be quick to put it up and be first, that's not what's important to us. What's important to us is digging as deep as we need to dig in order to get the right information. And also, you're right, when you're live sometimes on this desk, especially during developing stories like a hurricane, you're depending on your producers a lot of the time, or you're depending on reporters in the field to give you information. Literally, sometimes they're texting us information, sometimes they're messaging us on Slack, for information, and you don't have the opportunity to source it yourself. So the other thing that people might not realize is you have to trust your team. We have that here, which I think is a blessing, but you have to trust your team. So when the producer's in your ear saying, hey, Shari, they just opened up a shelter in Naples, or hey, Shari, there's water available, I have to trust that person that's giving me that information. And so there's a level of trust that comes with your team. And if you can't trust your team, it really puts you in a really crazy place in terms of breaking and developing news as well. But we're really big on sourcing. I'm not running with anything that I can't say according to, because if I put your name on, if I throw up a mugshot and I say this person did this, y'all not gonna put that on me. I'm going to say, according to the Fort Myers Police Department, according to the Collier County Sheriff's Office, we're never putting out information, Harold, that we didn't get from a credible source.
So when you get those messages in the earpiece about shelter and, maybe a certain area of the city that just maybe got power went down, like what runs through your mind, when you're covering those, post hurricane stories? And a second part to that question is what or who do you lean on, for the mental health aspect of it?
Depending on the community, like for instance, Fort Myers Beach, we take a lot of live cameras during hurricane season, right? So we can see exactly what it looks like when the storm hits. Oftentimes we have reporters stationed in safe areas out there because our meteorologists are experts and they can tell you exactly where the storm surge is, what it's looking like, and where the safest areas are, whatever. That moment, there, especially after Ian, there is a moment of hesitation, right? Even though this time I think we did a great job in terms of our leadership in choosing to evacuate areas like Fort Myers Beach, there's still that moment where you're like, yo, I love this area and I don't want to see anything like I saw with Ian, right? Inland areas like Lehigh Acres, I'm from Lehigh, so like, what was that, Irma, I think it was, when people thought it was going one way and then it took a different direction. And I remember being in a closet with my family when Irma took that turn. So then when you hear certain key words, there's a little bit of a moment that takes your breath away, This last storm, a tornado took our fence out. A tornado. What was, like, for real, Harold, is that something that we worry about? No. And all of a sudden we have a line of tornadoes. So when you hear certain areas, and unfortunately what's happening, I think, is like, it's not even isolated to certain areas anymore. When you hear like words like storm surge in certain communities, a line of tornadoes, it's just like we're starting to see so many different aspects that it's like, it's concerning. You start to worry. But I will say that I feel like we are seeing more and more people, including myself. Harold, when they told you back in the day that a Category 2 was coming through Southwest Florida, what was on your mind?
I can't recall right now.
Category 2, most people back in the day gonna be like, yo, we having a hurricane party. You
Yeah,
get
it
the
wasn't
drinks,
nothing.
you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm gonna get some batteries, we gonna be chilling, right? Now it's like, you talking about a tropical storm, and we are all of a sudden like, wait a second, because we know the impacts and the strength of these storms and as they're strengthening and whatnot. So it's totally changed to something where it was like we would brush it off to like we take it very seriously and we understand that various communities, it's not just one area, could be impacted in a very severe way.
Has anybody, not just here from Fox 4 specifically, but have you heard of any, reporter losing their lives, like local reporter, ever in a storm? Maybe before you came in or
Sure. Not that I know of.
Okay,
Not that
that's
I know
good.
of. I have heard of, and I will say that this was not associated with Fox 4, but I have heard of reporters in situations where the situation changed and they had to leave. We've experienced that too because, listen, weather is unpredictable. Even with the top meteorologist, it still is unpredictable. So we've seen situations where that water just came in quickly and we had to get like reporters out of there. But I don't know that I have ever known anyone personally or in the market that has lost their lives doing this job. And I will say our team, our leadership and our corporate leadership, they take safety very, very seriously.
During hurricane season, it takes a toll on everybody. You stay here at the studio or, you can be home with the family. So how do you cope with that? What does your brain go through? What do you do? What's for mental health?
I think in the moment you're not coping. In the moment you're just trying to like get through. We work, and this is very common, 12 hours on, 12 hours off. So you're on air. We literally sit at this desk and talk for hours on end. And in that moment, you're just getting through it. What's the breaking? What camera are we going to? What reporter do we have? You're just kind of getting through it. Afterwards is when it hits you. When I came off the desk after Ian, I remember we were on the desk when the storm hit and like the lights and everything was like shaking in the roof, right? While we're telling people, storm's coming your way, this is very serious, get into a safe place. And after, the emotion from Ian was so high that as soon as I came off the desk, I just started to cry. And on top of that, it was like, I couldn't connect with any of my family members. Cell service was down. It was crazy. So in those moments, you're just trying to like survive from moment to moment and figure it out. Ian was real for us, as it was for so many people in the community. And a lot of us went to therapy, had to get, therapeutic services, because it was like, my former co-anchor and I were out by Fort Myers Beach the day after the storm hit. And I remember being out there. We had law enforcement from all over the country. And I remember one of those law enforcement officers saying, you guys can stand here, but don't go too far out there, because we have no idea about a body count or what's behind you right at the base of the bridge by the water. That is like, you don't forget those moments. Yeah. So that's why we had to go to therapy, some of us, because it's real. It's, you're talking about people's lives ending like right behind you, and you don't even know like the capacity of how many people were impacted. So coping with it, I don't think you cope during, I think you cope after. And I have to tell you, like, we just came from New Orleans. We went to the museum for Katrina, and it was like, traumatic, we all know what happened with Katrina, and I think people in the Superdome and stuff like that, it's a little bit of a different story, but also like being stranded at your house, watching people get rescued by helicopters, that happened here. So that's no longer just a story that happened there. It's very relatable for us in a very, unfortunately, a very relatable way, and it helped me realize like maybe I need some more therapy when it comes to that, for real.
Shifting conversation from hurricane, when I turn on the news, whether it's ABC, The Wing, Fox, and all those, I don't see a lot of African-American journalists. So why do we not see more African-American women journalists in our local news channels? And do you feel like maybe public speaking plays a part in it? Because I know that's one of adults' biggest fear, public speaking. Mm-hmm. So why do we not, see more?
I will say that the picture has changed very much from when I first started, from when I was a child. Because from when I was a child, I remember thinking about wanting to do this job, but seeing no one who looked like me on air. Like, no one. Then there was one girl, she actually worked here at Fox 4. She was here for a while, and then she was gone. And I remember thinking, if I'm gonna have to do this, I'm gonna have to go to a different market. Now, we definitely, it might surprise you, we see more Black and brown women on local television, but could we see even more? Yes, but the decision starts at the top. I will say Fox 4, when I was the dayside anchor here, it was a big deal in the community because people were like, oh my gosh, like, we have a Black anchor. It was a big deal. And sometimes I take a step back and I'm still wrapping my head around that, right? And so the representation is important. I think we see representation on every station that we see here in Southwest Florida, but as far as why we don't see more, I think that's a question you might have to ask like leaders, as far as like what is the barrier. I think there are people who want to be journalists in Southwest Florida. We see them, we're seeing them pop up on the air more here, but as far as why, I don't know if I have the answer as to why we're not seeing that. I could speculate, but I don't know that I can say exactly why that is, because I know they're applying for sure, they're applying. But I will say I am proud of the progress that we've made. And I am proud of the fact that like I go out in the community and, people say, oh, I love Miyoshi Price. She's one of our reporters here, oh, I love Ella Roach. She speaks Spanish. Like people love that, and we understand the importance of connecting with the community. And I love that it's not just one person that they can connect with.
How do you deal with the criticism from the viewers when you first got in to now?
Oh, that's a good question. That's a really good question. You know that when I first started, I had relaxed hair, right? And I thought like, all right, I'm gonna be an anchor, so that means I gotta have like straight, perfect hair. And then I cut it into a bob. It was like really bad. It was very bad. And then I decided I was gonna wear braids. And that was a whole thing for me to wear braids on air. And somebody messaged me, somebody emailed me, and this guy was like, I see that you're aligning yourself with the Black Lives Matter movement because you braided your hair. Mm-hmm. Right, that was the response right. Like, sir. So that type of stuff used to bother me heavy. It wasn't that long ago, a couple years ago, I was on air and somebody sent an email that was so hateful. It went to the whole newsroom. I was on air talking, I looked down because we're always like on Facebook and stuff while we're on air, connecting. This email came through, it had my name on it. And it was a very just super negative email. And I'm not really too fazed by those things, but it made me cry on air. So shout out to that person because you got me. It had me crying heavy on air. They had to take me off air and all these things, right? But the love that I get from the community is 25 times more of that than the negativity. The negativity maybe comes every couple years somebody gets brave and wants to email me or whatever, but the love supersedes all of that. So if you get caught up in the negative emails and stuff, please believe it'll bring you down. And when you work in TV, people feel I think it's the medium. People feel like they relate to you or whatever. So they're going to tell you, emails I really love that dress that you have on, or I really don't feel like you should wear that dress. Somebody's grandmother just emailing us or whatever. I really like when you wear this lip color. I don't like when you wear this ring. People really care about the details. And you learn after a while, if you're starting to see the same criticism over and over, maybe that's a thing, but people just feel like they have a lot of access to you and you appreciate that connectivity with the audience. But at the end of the day, a lot of it you have to be delete. In through one ear, out the other. Because at the end of the day, the emails that I get where people are like, Shari, love watching you, or the Facebook messages or Instagram, when people can say to you, I remember when you did fill in the blank, to me, that's enough of a win than any email talking about my braids or whatever it is that you think about me. That's the win. You learn that you gotta filter out what people, because everybody's gonna have an opinion. You know how many times people have been like, I like your hair curly. I like braids. Oh, I like it better when you, what if I listen to all those people? I be changing my hair every day, Harold, for real. You learn to just do you, and the more authentic you are on air, the more you connect with people, which brings in even more whatever fan mail or whatever. But at the end of the day, you just learn, I'm gonna show up like this, and if that works for you, cool, and if it doesn't, they got 3 other stations you can watch,
Talking about being on air, have you ever cussed while being on the air?
My mom might see this. No. I've never cussed on air, and I don't, and just knock on wood that would never happen, because we're real people. But people in here always make fun of me because I got a thing that I do, because you get angry, you get pissed, I always say cuss word. Whenever I want to cuss, I always say cuss word. So I'll be like, cuss word. And that's kind of my way of letting it out while still keeping this job. Always say cuss word. I think one of the editors has a compilation of me saying cuss word in various situations. If I'm live and I want to say something, I'm gonna just say cuss word and get it out. But no, Harold, I ain't never cussed on air because I'm trying to keep this job heavy.
All right, what was the most embarrassing story that you have covered?
Embarrassing story. One time I got stuck on a slide in a live shot. It wasn't like a serious story. I was doing a live thing at the Coconut Fest, I think it was, in Cape Coral, and I was coming down the slide, and I just wasn't coming down the slide more all of a sudden. Back in the studio, I was live talking to them here, and everybody was like, Shari, are you stuck? And I was like, yeah, I'm stuck. But I owned it. I started talking about my hips being too big and everything like that. And I made it down the slide. I was like, I guess I got to lose some weight. But that right there probably was the most, I think I handled it well, but it was the one thing that I was like, oh my gosh, this actually happened to me live on air.
What makes Fox 4 different than any other local news outlets?
That's a good question.
What excites you about working with this cast?
Don't tell them. But I love the people that I work with. These people that I work with, I love them. And everybody brings a different perspective to the team. Fox 4 is different. Let me just say this, because I don't know that I don't know the other stations, right? But I think Fox 4 is different because when you look at our stories, they look different, okay? You have journalists who are out there telling stories that oftentimes they haven't yet been covered by other stations yet, because our journalists are super connected in the community. So I don't know if you know this, Harold, but a lot of our team, they're living in the communities that they work with. So if they cover Cape Coral, they live in Cape Coral. And so they're in the same communities over and over. So what happens? You start to develop relationships with people. People know I'm gonna text Harold about this because he came in and had, a meal at my restaurant, and he comes in here every Wednesday when he's working on a story. So we have these really strong relationships that have started to, as we rebrand, they've started to give us an edge on breaking news stories and stories that other people haven't had yet, because our journalists are plugged in heavy to the community.
If you was to run your own news channel, what would you do differently?
I would tell more of the regular people stories. And that's not to like knock any news station, because we have data that says what people want to hear about. Okay, as much as people say like I don't watch the news because it's negative, well, the data shows that you want to hear about crime in your community, and it says that you want to hear about development and the traffic that you sit in and all of those things. So we're going off of what the data tells us and what so many of you actually tell us you want to hear. So I understand people don't want to watch the news, but also like that's a reality. But I would tell more of the person down the street story. And what I'm talking about is the neighbor down the street that I have who went to the doctor because she had a pain, and 2 months later she had a double mastectomy, and 3 months after that she beat breast cancer. Those are the stories I would tell more, because I think those are the stories that connect us more, and they're everyday stories of people navigating and winning and overcoming in life. And it's not always an overcoming story, right? Let's be honest, it doesn't always have a positive ending, but I wish we could tell more stories like that. But of course, we only have a certain amount of time in a newscast. But I would tell more everyday people stories that not even just make a difference, but it's like, yo, like, you trained for 2 months and then you ran this marathon. That's fire. Somebody else out there is like, dang, I've been wanting to do that. You know, I wish I could do more of that storytelling.
So we're gonna get a little personal. You're dating a person who's a prominent figure in Southwest Florida. Some people might know him, they might not. You might have seen, his businesses. He only has 6 Twin Cuts barbershops in the area. He goes by the name of Sean Casey. How did you and Sean meet, and how does he stimulate your creativity from a business standpoint?
Oh, that's good. Sean, I've known Sean for a very long time. Just working in the community, we see each other at events and stuff like that, just like mad love, and then we stayed connected on social media and stuff like that. And then he slid in my DMs, but he told me not to tell you all that part, so that's different. No, but I love the question about him encouraging me in the creative space. He is a business mega mind, right? I mean, the way his mind thinks is incredible when it comes to business. Like, I don't like to make his head too big, but he knows I think he is a superstar when it comes to business. He encourages me to think outside of the box. I'm somebody who works for a company, right? I work on a contract, so things are my day's pretty regimented every day. He encourages me to see myself as not just a news personality or not just someone who works in the news industry. What more can you offer? Which, if I'm honest, like, I've always wanted to delve deeper into that. But you have somebody who's like, you're a boss. You're a boss, and somebody who's sees that in you and encourages that in you and helps you to further shape that. That's somebody that I want in my life. And Sean is constantly learning, and I love that about him. As much as Sean already knows and he can teach, that's why he has the school right now, he's still constantly learning. He's never not a student. And I can appreciate that too, because being here now, like most of us here, we could do this job with our eyes closed, but he encourages me to continue to keep learning in whatever the field it is and think beyond that chair, beyond the camera. And I love that about him. But he did slide in my DMs. That part is very true.
He makes sure to make you aware that you're in your own brand.
100%. And that's important, because I'll tell you, you can get tied to the title of this job. I'm a TV reporter. I'm a TV producer. I'm a news anchor. You can get tied to that and almost lose your identity in that, People see you out in the street. They're like, oh, you're Shari from Fox 4. And it's like, actually, real talk, like, I'm just Shari, Yeah. But I'm so tied to this brand, and I love what I do, so it's no shade, but it's just like, you actually, and my girlfriends are really big on reminding me of this too, like, you're not just that. And my friend Katrina always reminds me, like, before you worked at Fox 4, you were at Quality Life Center, and you were just Miss Shari, Miss Armstrong. And at my core, that is who I am, and I never want to forget that. And Sean does a great job of reminding me, like, yo, keep it pushing.
That's good. So both of you are powerhouses in Southwest Florida. Do you admire how public, somebody like a J-Lo and Ben Affleck were in their relationship, or are you more of the, let me keep things limited on my social platforms?
I'm with the ladies who are like, I'm not putting my whole business out on social media. I'm with that team, for sure. What did Cardi B say? Ain't no ring on my finger, you ain't going on my gram. Okay, like, I 100% do relate to that. Actually, maybe I 75% relate to that. Because what I've also realized is on social media, if I'm going to be calling out people for not being transparent, then I also feel like there's a responsibility for me to do that too. I try to keep my brand like very related to news and stuff like that, but the more I talk to people, the more they're like, they want to know more about me as a person. So, you know, yeah, when Sean and I first started dating, it was like we keep these entities different. Like you're your brand, I'm my brand, and it's cool. And we both were like that. But I think as like time progressed, it's like, yo, like this is what it is. You know, this is what we doing. And so I do believe in like it is okay to be like, you know, I'm with this person or whatever. But do I feel like y'all need to know every time we go out to the movies or whatever? No, I don't believe 100% in that. But I'm gonna own it. I'm proud of it. He's lucky to be with me, and I'm lucky to be with him too.
What piece of advice would you say to a 13-year-old Shari?
Do the thing that you want to do. Do the thing that you want to do. Remember I said like, if I was brave enough, I wasn't joking, I would have been an actress. When I was watching Wicked and all these other shows, we went to Broadway not too long ago, I'm like, I wish I was brave enough to do that. And I didn't come from a family that told me like, oh, you have to get a real job. My mom put me in all the classes and everything. Like, I just didn't have the belief within myself, as confident as I was, even at that time, to believe that I could pursue a career on Broadway and things like that. So if I look back on her, I would be like, girl, do the thing. You shine on stage already. If that's what you want to do, just do it. Because now here you are 30 something, and it's like you wonder what could have been. You know, some people are brave enough to pursue the thing that they want to do. And granted, like I'm doing the thing that I wanted to do as well. But the first thing was definitely being on stage. So I'd been like, girl, do the thing you want to do.
Staying on the topic of being a teenager, what advice would you like to tell teenage girls or girls that are no longer teenager, that just got out of that phase, that are still seeking for their confidence?
Yeah, I mean, listen, like I have a couple in my life right now, and I feel like the thing that I tell them the most is like, you're already enough. Like you're already popping. You know, the eyebrows that you have, you know how hard it is to be 13? It was hard when we were younger being 13. And now with social media and everything like that, it almost like accelerates them to want to do the makeup and, you know, all those things like even faster. And it was fast then. I try to tell them, my girl, you are pretty just the way you are. If you love a certain thing like anime or whatever it is that might feel a little different than what other girls love, own that. That's how God made you. God made you to love that particular thing or be this certain way. That, however God made you, that is enough. That is the thing I try to tell as many girls as I interact with as possible. You are enough.
Fast forward into the future a little bit. Do you see yourself on a nationwide media platform like a CNN or ESPN?
That was a dream of mine at one point. When I was younger, starting out here, I wanted to continue to climb in markets, but I am very tied to my family. So I'm like, I want to be here. Also, I think things are different. I think the dream before for me was to climb. Now I'm like, I have social media in like my pocket, you know what I'm saying, in my purse. And people are growing brands so easily on social media or so strategically on social media that it's like, if I want to become a news source on that level, I could become a news source internationally from my phone. So the dream, people always ask me like, why don't you, you know, climb? And I'm like, I just feel like that's really shifted for me in my life. And the thing that I want to do is I don't know that I want to be at that level in news. If I was at that level, it would be more like lifestyle storytelling, like how I mentioned before. I would probably be the person doing the entertainment interviews and stuff like that if I ever had that opportunity. But as far as news, I think local, because I'm so tied to this community, this is enough for me. This is where I believe God wants me to be, and I'm good like right here.
All right. So besides seeing you on Fox 4 every day at 6 p.m., what social platform could they follow you on?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram pretty heavy. You can find me on Shari Armstrong TV there. I'm also on TikTok as well. And then of course on Facebook, you can find me on Shari Armstrong, just typing in Shari Armstrong as well. Don't try to add my personal one if you find it, because I'm not going to add you.
All right. Before we let you go, if you could give one piece of advice to an aspiring journalist or a risk taker, what would it be?
To the journalists, it would be, do not just stick to focusing on specifically broadcast journalists. Do not just stick to climbing the ladder and wanting to be a broadcast journalist. You have multiple platforms where people are getting their information from, connecting with you. Make sure you're building that platform now. You're learning how to use the TikTok and the Facebook, which the storytelling is very different from broadcast journalism. So I would highly encourage you, not only that, but connect with people now. That's also for the risk takers, the second part of your question. Making sure that you're also networking heavy. Harold, you are a master of networking.
Thank you.
Who you know at this point makes a difference. So, you might sit back and think, I'll never be on fill in the blank channel, but you might know the right person who can get you through the door. And so I do believe that it comes down to networking, getting up, going to the networking event down the street. Sometimes you don't feel like doing it, making sure you have your business cards or your digital business cards, making sure people know who you are and you don't allow them to forget who you are, I think is important.
All right, so that wraps up another episode of the Risk Takers Podcast. I want to thank Shari Armstrong for her time. Stay tuned for the next episode.
Thanks, guys.